Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2011, official council meeting for the month of February. We have a special guest in the audience, Mr. Jonathan Sinisi, who is one of our proud Boy Scouts, Troop 17. He actually just came from his physical fitness test, so he's a little bit huffed right now, but he's going to come up along with his father, Peter Sinisi, and for our Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all please rise. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. They have a proud mother, Dr. Marianne Sinisi, who's a doctor to many of us here at Elmhurst Hospital, as well. So thank you, Jonathan, and we're proud of you. At this time, to make the meeting official, I just Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf. Here. Pezza.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Leader. Absent. Rose.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Pipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
13 present, 0 absent. 13 present, 1 absent.
13 present, 1 absent. We have an official quorum. On to item number 2, which is a brief little explanation from Union Pacific Railroad safety improvements at Elmhurst Metro Station. We have with us here tonight Director of Public Affairs Wesley Lujan and Senior Representative of Community Affairs Demetrius Skoufis. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, my name is Dimitri Skoufis. I'm with Metra. I'm a Senior Community Affairs Representative, and I represent West Cook County, DuPage, and Kane County.
Hello, I'm Wes Lujan, Director of Government Affairs for Union Pacific for Illinois. And I recently replaced Mr. Tom Zappler. I don't know if any of you got the good fortune of working with him. He had a 39-year career with our company, both the C&W and with Union Pacific, and I replaced him at the end of August. So I look forward to working with all of you going forward.
Well, we have a video for you this evening, and it's about, rather than answer questions now and describe it, we'll just view the video and we could answer questions afterwards. But it's about safety and operational enhancements at the Elmhurst station and other stations along the Union Pacific West Line, and it's part of an overall $132 million safety and operational enhancement program. So please play the video and we'll answer any questions after the fact.
Safety and service are the two most important things for Metra and the Union Pacific Railroad. And on the Union Pacific West Line, a new train arrival warning system is being installed at 8 stations to improve grade crossings.
Danger, another train coming.
Another train warning system is a new device for both Metra and the Union Pacific. The goal is to enhance safety at Metro stations and improve the flow of commuter and freight traffic.
Danger, another train coming.
It works like this. When a Metro train is stopped at a station and another freight or Metro train is approaching, the another train warning system is activated with flashing lights and bells, warning passengers standing near that another train is approaching. In areas where there are 3 tracks, pedestrians or passengers may not be aware of an oncoming train. Just as the gates come down for motor vehicles, so do the new gates at the sidewalk for the warning system. Another train warning system alerts anyone standing near the tracks or wanting to cross that it's dangerous to do so, and stays active as long as there is more than 1 train in the area of the station. This new system is part of a $132 million project to improve not only safety, but also freight traffic. The Union Pacific West Line is one of the most heavily traversed. Safety and service are the two most important things for Metra and the Union Pacific Railroad. And on the Union Pacific West Line, a new train arrival warning system is being installed at 8 stations to improve grade crossings.
Danger, another train coming.
Another train warning system is a new device for both Metra and the Union Pacific. The goal is to enhance safety at metro stations and improve the flow of commuter and freight traffic.
Danger, another train coming.
It works like this. When a metro train is stopped at a station and another freight or metro train is approaching, the another train warning system is activated with flashing lights and bells, warning passengers standing near that another train is approaching. In areas where there are 3 tracks, pedestrians or passengers may not be aware of an oncoming train. Just as the gates come down for motor vehicles, so do the new gates at the sidewalk for the warning system. Another train warning system alerts anyone standing near the tracks or wanting to cross that it's dangerous to do so and stays active as long as there is more than one train in the area of the station. This new system is part of a $132 million project to improve not only safety but also freight traffic. The Union Pacific West Line is one of the most heavily traversed lines for freight traffic, often resulting in commuter delays. The another train warning system will also improve the flow of freight traffic so trains can pass through commuter stations safely. Beginning in March, this new system will be active at Maywood, Melrose Park, Elmhurst, Villa Park, Glen Ellen, College Avenue, Winfield, and Geneva stations.
So today we were at the Elmhurst and Villa Park train stations doing what we call a safety blitz. We had volunteers from Operation Lifesaver and staff from both the Union Pacific and Metra handing out flyers. We played this video. We had a little portable video system. We played it for commuters inside the station. It was very well received. We did have some questions, and people thought it was a good idea. These safety signs will be installed at York and at Cottage Hill.
I also just want to thank Commander Jim Kavieton for his participation with your officers. They were out there as well. You, as a community, have a strong rail safety ethos, and we appreciate that. And we appreciate the partnership. It went really well. We also did a safety outreach with Elmhurst College as well, right after the blitz.
Very good. Thank you. Hey, real quick, before you guys take off, we've got that Metra deck that just went up, and I know we're looking for some dollars from the grant, which we're happy to be a partner on. Just curious if you have any idea on when we might be seeing those dollars.
I was telling Wes today how beautiful of a deck it is. So. No, the $2.5 million, we have the attorneys for both Metra and the city have gone back and forth with comments regarding the intergovernmental agreement. So we're in the process, and hopefully that gets resolved. I'm sure it'll need city council approval, and
Terrific.
We're hoping to get it done before Tom leaves.
Beautiful, beautiful. The sooner the better, and we appreciate that. And the money has been released from the state, so you actually have those funds in your possession, correct?
I believe so. You know, we had that, there was the issue with the court ruling and the Supreme Court stay. So I happened to be at the RTA board meeting last week, and Executive Director Costello told the board essentially they're proceeding as if nothing has changed unless something changes.
Very good.
And before we wrap up, I just wanted to extend a thanks to Mr. Borchert. I've been with Metra for 9 years, and he's been a great resource, very helpful, accessible, responsive to Metra and Union Pacific needs. And I don't know if I'm going to have an opportunity to address the council, but before then, but we're going to certainly miss Tom. So, best wishes.
Alderman Pezza? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Rose. I'm very, very sorry. Apologize. I'm losing it.
Yeah, well, that threw me for a loop.
I apologize.
How about you, Alderman Pezza?
I'm sorry,
Threw
Alderman
you for a
Pezza.
loop
Sorry,
as
Alderman
well?
Rose.
I have a question. The installation of this system, will that obviate the need for blowing the horn at all? Or is that, because I got to tell you, I asked you that because I was in Elmhurst today and I saw a train going through. There was no reason for them to blow their horn, and that's something we've worked on for those folks who are both in the 3rd Ward and the 4th Ward. Why are they blowing their horns at these intersections? So question one, will that obviate the need for horn blowing? Is it going to impact that? And secondly, why are guys still blowing their horns?
Yeah.
Curious.
Basically today, why our engineers were blowing their horns is there's a situation called Form B, and with the gentlemen out there doing their work on the signal arms, that's why they're blowing the horn. There will be some horn blowing with this. The practice as dictated, and this happens when two trains pass each other,
Right.
they blow the horn the front end of the train and at the tail end of the train.
Right.
So that will be a practice that our engineers will use when this system's put in place.
They already use that right now. Or you
They
said-
do,
or
when they
just-
pass each other now, when
Right,
two
so this
trains...
isn't going to be anything new then?
Well, they'll be more frequent. There will be more frequency because there will be freight trains going through the station.
Okay. All right.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
if I may, I'm sorry, Mayor. May
Sure,
I?
absolutely.
But one of the things with the operating curfews that Metra has, in other words, they operate between, they go dark between, 1 and 5 a.m., basically, or 5:30. In the dead of the night, we will not have, it's only happening when there's a passenger train boarding or deboarding the station. So when that scenario is not happening, another train warning will not be functioning. It's only when there's a fixed train in the station.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. We appreciate your, thank you. And I apologize, Alderman Rose.
Perhaps you should apologize to Alderman
And
Pezza.
Alderman Pezza.
No apology necessary. It's a compliment.
That's right. Okay, on to item number 3, which is receipt of written communications and/or petitions from the public. At this time, is there anyone with any written communications and/or petitions from the public? If there are anybody in the audience, there's anybody in the audience that has anything written or any petitions, please stand and present those to Clerk Spencer at this time. Anybody? Hearing none, I will now go to our public forum section of our meeting. Clerk Spencer, do we have anybody sign up for public forum?
Yes, we do. We'll start with Colin O'Connell, 741 Fairfield.
Okay, Mr. O'Connell,
I don't know.
anybody?
He left the building.
What was the name again, Clerk Spencer?
Colin O'Connell, it looks like to me.
Holland O'Connell.
741 Fairfield.
Anybody at 741 Fairfield that would like to speak? Maybe we could skip that, may have gone to the bathroom possibly. We'll come back and repeat that name.
Okay. Next, we have Bob Holt, 401 East Niagara.
Good evening. Thank you for introducing me because I'm not sure all of you would know who I am without my bike shorts and bike helmet. I want to speak to 3 items this evening. First of all, this is mostly for the public's benefit, as the council already is aware that this past week the Bike Task Force filed its bike-friendly community application with the League of American Bicyclists. This has been an effort that has been over 2 years in the coming. We're very hopeful about the outcome of that application. One of the values of submitting the application is to identify things within the community that need to be improved. And there were 2 major gaps in our application as submitted. Hopefully they won't be fatal. The first one is the lack of a comprehensive bike plan. This is something that, though we have a city comprehensive plan, the bike plan within that is a relatively small segment, and we would look to enhance that. The second is the lack of a bike parking ordinance. So, to the point of a bike plan, I was very fortunate to hook up with a UIC graduate student in urban planning who wants to do a bike plan for Elmhurst as part of his graduate thesis. We have proceeded with that effort, and hopefully by the end of April, when his thesis is due, we will have a good structure, a good beginning for a bike plan for Elmhurst. This is an effort that normally would cost $15,000 to $20,000, and it will cost us nothing. The third item is a bike parking ordinance. The Bike Task Force is working with the Development Planning and Zoning Committee. We have submitted to them a sample of what we think such an ordinance might look like, so I am very confident that we will put together something that will meet that need. We should know the results of these efforts by sometime in May, and you will be the first to hear of it. I'd like to express my support My thanks for the support of the city, Park District, and school district staffs, and the task force resident volunteers, especially Sue Montgomery, for the effort and solid support which they have given us for this effort. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hall.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
And Claude, remember, we're going to try to keep this to 3 minutes if we can. I'll give you a little warning ahead of time, so thank you.
We'll try to keep it to 3 minutes, Mayor. I understand this evening the body is going to vote on this Burke Engineering. We've already paid this gentleman a substantial amount of money, and I guess tonight we're really going to give him a few bucks to play with. But over the years, individuals have come to this council and others, other mayors, and voiced that they need help with the flooding problem in this town. Money was allocated, engineering firms hired, councils kicked it around, and I assume the report wound up on a shelf somewhere. I've sat here and listened to aldermen say, it doesn't take a 100-year rainstorm. If it drizzles, we got flooding in our area. If this council and the members honestly believe that this report is worth the investment, I would hate to see it just come back to this council and be kicked around and then wind up on a shelf somewhere. Because if that's the ultimate end of it, then there's no need to vote for it. The people on the south side badgered you guys, and everybody was running around, we got to do something, we got to do it now. Well, now you're going to do it, maybe. But again, if you vote for it, don't put it on the shelf, because they'll be back next year and the year after. And it's not all your fault. The town knew about it for a long time. You, unfortunately, are stuck with it. And those that will come and take your place. So if you vote for it, plan on doing something with it. Don't put it on a shelf.
Thank you, Claude.
Okay, Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine Street.
Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine Street. I know that some of you, in preparing for tonight's discussions on the contract that Claude was referring to, thought that you might be facing some difficulty. I want to remind you of many of the difficulties that Elmhurst residents and citizens faced that got us to this point. Again, on the evening or on the day of July 24th, my neighbors and me were surrounded by a 1 block long, 2 block wide puddle that came out of the city storm sewer systems. Our houses were flooded with 4 to 9 feet of water. It was a lot of houses. Over on Washington Street, the Morrow family faced their second flood in 2 months. They had 10 feet of water in their house, and they had to escape their home by boat. The neighbors of Saylor and Jackson stood vigil on the pumping station. There's many other stories. There's 700 stories. I can't tell them all in 3 minutes, so I won't even try. So that's why we're here tonight. And I hope that we remember that. I want to say that with regards to the, I've gone to most of the discussions of the Public Works Committee with regards to the contract, and I was very comforted last week by the assurances of the city manager, the assistant city manager, the Public Works director, over there, and the Public Works Committee, saying that they and city staff, and as well as city council, would be actively involved in the management of this contract. I've read the contract. I was pleased to see that there would be 3 solutions for each stormwater area studied, since stormwater is more my focus than the sanitary systems. And so I think that if I was up there tonight, you know, it's hard to put yourself in your shoes, I think that I would be voting in favor of the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
concludes all our signups for tonight, Mayor.
All righty. The gentleman from, what street was that again? Was it Fairview or Fairfield? Fairfield?
Oh, okay. Colin?
Colin, anybody Colin from Fairfield Street? One last call. Okay, hearing none, we officially close the public forum portion of our meeting, and we'll go on to item number 5, which is our consent agenda. Is there anyone that has maybe a question or possibly might want to vote no on any particular item on the consent agenda? Please speak up now, and we'll go ahead and pull that particular item. Anybody would like to pull any particular item from the consent agenda? Nobody? Okay. Hearing none, I just clerk Spencer to call the roll. Need a motion and a second to approve the contents of the consent agenda in its entirety. Alderman Wagner, Alderman Kennedy with a second. Clerk Spencer, if you could please call the roll, please. Thank you.
Wagner.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Gudenkauf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader. Absent. Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent. The consent agenda passes in its entirety. And on to item number 6, which is a committee report. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the report, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the proposal for the Comprehensive Flood Control Plan from the Burke RJN team, as outlined above, be approved, and furthermore, that the City Council approve an appropriate resolution which would thereby allow contract documents to be signed. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee, signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Michael Graham, Vice Chairman, Pat Shea, and Chris Healy.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. At this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this particular item on the floor, please. Alderman Kennedy with a motion, Alderman Morley with a second. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mrs. Sullivan pointed out, this process began back in June and July with the serious floods that went on. And at that time, we made a commitment to do an independent review of our storm and sanitary systems so that we could have a good baseline from which to go ahead and make improvements in both of those areas. We knew it would be costly. We've heard estimates that this could be $40, $50, $60 million, but we knew we needed it to be very thorough. We didn't want to cut any corners in this endeavor, because ultimately the better job we do up front with a plan, the better off we're going to be when it comes to spending money to make the actual improvements. So from this, we developed a project scope, and this was developed on feedback from the residents, many of whom were with us at the marathon meeting at Bryan Junior High, from city staff, from ourselves here on the council, and also the results of previous studies that city staff pulled and looked at and what we did in the past. From there, we adopted the QBS system, or the approach in terms of selecting vendors. We took that scope and we went out to these engineering firms and we asked for them to put their best foot forward as to exactly how would they approach the project. Those firms then came to us and we reviewed those, a team of us with city staff, myself, the mayor, and we made the selection that Christopher Burke Engineering, along with RJN, was the best firm for our needs. They then came back to us with a preliminary proposal that was reviewed in the Public Works team. There were revisions made because there were some ideas that we could do things better and more cost-effective, especially when we were looking at the areas of the 7th Ward and Sailor and Jackson. We could be more cost-effective in those analyses up front. We've got a final plan in front of us of approximately $845,000. I'm not going to candy coat it that that's not a lot of money. It's a huge amount of money. But in the grand scheme of things, it's the best thing that we can do to ultimately serve the residents of Elmhurst for the next 20 years to come, in terms of the efforts that we need to take so that we can put flooding as we've known it in the past behind us. So in terms of how do we pay for this, we've already seen from staff that we have funds in the 10-11 budget that have been allocated. Those are areas where we've looked at monies not spent from sewer lining, monies not spent from the overhead sewer project. So we've got the portion of spending required for this fiscal year covered, and we have the lion's share already put aside in the budget for next year. We have $500,000 put aside. We're going to need to spend $565, so we have to allocate for that in the upcoming budget process, and I'm confident we're going to be able to do that. So, what do we do going forward, and how do we handle this? We have sufficient safeguards in place so that what Christopher Burke does, we are going to be on top of, and we are going to have a standing agenda item on our Public Works Committee to review the activities of this project to ensure that things are being done on time, they're being done properly, and they're being done in a cost-effective manner. We also have provisions in the contract to tell Burke to speed up, slow down, or stop. And if we're not getting the quality of service, we can end the contract at any time, and that ensures that we have a good quality of work. In the end, we own the data. We have to take that data and make action going forward in terms of what we want to do. And in summary, they're going to provide us a good product. They're giving it to us at a fair price. That's what city staff looked at as part of this process to ensure that we were being charged a fair and appropriate rate for the services that are going to be used. And we've got the proper safeguards in place to ensure that if Burke doesn't hold up their end of the bargain or RJN doesn't, that we have recourse. And that's thank you to the city attorney for helping with that. So in summary, I'm supportive of this plan. It's a lot of money. It's a big commitment, but it's the right thing for us to do, and I ask everyone up here to support it as well so we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellent. Alderman Morley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple things I'd like to say. Please indulge me. I'm a little under the weather. That's why you called on me second. I'm not sure I'm going to make the whole meeting. A couple things I want to say, and then I do have a question. Certainly, I fully support this proposal, and I want to thank the committee and city staff for all of their hard work. Specifically, my fellow alderman, Jim Kennedy in the 6th Ward. It seems that this has been his life for the past 6 months, and I want to call him out specifically. Seems like every time I talk to him, this is top of mind. The other thing I want to make sure people understand is that this is something that we promised the citizens of Elmhurst when this whole process started. And, you know, it's easy for some people who didn't flood to maybe forget what happened 6 months ago, but it's our job not to forget. So we need to maintain that promise. We need to stick to that promise, and this is just the beginning, as Alderman Kennedy said. It's a lot of money, but I think it's being spent wisely. A couple things I want to point out. One, first and foremost, I'm always very encouraged when something comes out of committee with the full support of the committee. That tells me that you know, we are moving in the right direction. A couple things from the report itself I think it's very important to point out. One, in the third paragraph, an appropriate for Elmhurst scope of work was identified and was judged by the committee as the minimum effort necessary to provide the proper foundation for infrastructure spending decisions going forward, and which is also judged as cost effective. Very important in my opinion. We're going to be making decisions on a 10, 20, 30-year process and be spending $30, $40, $50 million. I don't want to be making those decisions without the right set of data. And this tells us that this is where to start. Number two, this is what we promised the citizens of Elmhurst. The comprehensive flood control plan will serve Elmhurst in the short and long term, as it will provide a roadmap for the city to follow relative to improvements. That's the other key part of this that I think is very important. This is just getting started. We have to invest now so we go down the correct road. Finally, a couple of other issues. I was encouraged to see in the proposals an overall review of our sewer systems. I think that's something that could be expanded. In addition, I was pleased to see the hot spots that were identified, many of which do affect the south part of Elmhurst and the 6th Ward. Bottom line is we know there's room for improvement. We need to make a commitment to find that improvement to move forward. So I am fully in support of this, and again want to reiterate my thanks to the committee, Alderman Kennedy, and city staff. I do have one question, though. It seems to come up a lot, but I want to specifically find out either from Mike Hughes or City Manager Borchert. This is the QBS process that I'm speaking of. Alderman Kennedy in the past has referred to it as, you don't want to go find the cheapest heart surgeon, you want to find the best. I certainly agree with that. So if I can get an explanation from either Mike Hughes or whomever's going to be in charge as to how, in the back of this proposal, there's a budget schedule, and there's 4 or 5 different levels of engineers. I want to know how we determine the price for those engineers per hour and what's considered a fair price, a fair market price. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Major Board, should we address that now or later after we end discussion?
It's my understanding we've got the unit prices for the various descriptions of professional staff and support staff from both Burke and RJN, and those individuals as they work will be charged the hours times the hourly rates times the multipliers with the profit and overhead, which we then pay. But the contract provides for a not-to-exceed price for those components of work product.
Very good. Alderman Morley?
Follow up. I assume there's obviously different pricings for the different levels of engineers. How does that relate to market price?
Well, the city has a number of different consulting engineering firms that it employs every year. Each year, Mr. Hughes and the engineering staff took a look at those hourly rates at other contract projects versus the RJN and the Burke prices, and they're comparable.
Good. Alderman Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for discussion.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to commend the committee for an excellent report. I am in full support. It's always nice, and I will second Alderman Morley's comments about having a unanimous decision from the committee. It's always nice to see all 4 signatures. Everybody's in agreement. And also agree with Mr. Morley's comment that the time to do this is now. The 7th Ward got hit extremely hard, as did Pine Street, and as did Alderman Mulliner and myself, and the time, we just can't, this is the right thing to do. If we want to design a comprehensive solution, you need to have a comprehensive report that says exactly what's wrong, and that's going to take time, and it's going to take money. It's a big city, and it's got some old infrastructure, and it needs to be changed, but I'm excited. I certainly appreciate Dr. Burke and all he's done in the summertime, right after on all of the town hall meetings that we had, and took the time to answer a lot of the residents' questions. But I'm excited for it, and I commend the committee again. I thought they did an excellent job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Wagner. Any other discussion? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make sure that I start off by clarifying some misunderstandings that seem to have happened since I initially did not sign this report. The report that we discussed on the committee night last Monday did not include, even though we discussed and all agreed in committee, did not include what I consider is one of the main points that I was concerned about of this study, this comprehensive plan, which was my recommendation initially. And that is the checks and balances. Going through this, we do have the not to exceed limit in regards to the recommendation before you tonight, but it didn't have a periodic, I'll call it, checks and balances to make sure that we do evaluate what direction we need to head into, what can or should we eliminate if necessary, or what should we alter. The other point that I wanted to make, and since the report has been modified since that initial discussion, I did sign the report, and I am for this recommendation. But I want to stress also, I'm not really happy with actually the overall dollar amount. $845,000 to me seems to be not only a large sum of money, but what I would consider from the civil engineers that I have spoken to in regards to the scope of services, in regards to what Elmhurst is requesting, seems to be a little bit on the excessive side. I don't disagree that a comprehensive plan isn't needed. I think it is, and I think it's definitely a good thing. Again, I will remind the council that was my recommendation, to do this comprehensive study. But in these times, we have to make sure that we're spending our money wisely. Approximately between sanitary and storm, the summary report from a stormwater management analysis is budgeted to be $60,000. From a sanitary, the presentations at council meetings is approximately $23,000. That's approximately $80,000 that we're being charged just for meetings. My recommendation was, why couldn't we cut that in half and have city staff, since they will be learning or listening and working with our consultants along the way, and make sure that we are wise with every dollar we're spending. I wrap this up by saying that I think overall, comprehensive study and scope of services is excellent, right on. Some of the areas that we're spending, I don't agree with, but I didn't want to hold up the report, and therefore I decided to move forward with it. Another thing, which is a policy decision, is along the lines of, where is it here? Give me 1 second. In regards to task number 6 on the stormwater management analysis, that's individual house flood proofing. And the policy point of view I'm trying to make here is, is city government responsible to be telling individual homeowners on what they should be doing to flood-proof their house? My belief is we as a city government are responsible for the city infrastructure, not responsible for what each house looks like. Do they have glass blocks, windows where they should? Do they have the right swales where they should, et cetera? So that, I think, is another $11,000 that could have been saved in regards to this overall plan. That is something that I think during the progression of this comprehensive plan is what I will be discussing in our committee meetings and be looking closer at, because I would like to save every dollar possible, because it is the residents' overall monies, and we need to watch every single dime that we spend. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman. Any other discussion? Alderman Levin.
Well, I'm not on the committee, but I did come into most of the meetings at the end, and our committee operates much more efficiently, so we were able to finish our work and get over to Public Works was doing. I'm very pleased that this study is going forward, because I've had personal concerns about the fact we started out by doing overhead sewers and not understanding if that is money well spent or not. This will answer the question and tell us where we are best spending our money. And I know it seems like a lot of money if you haven't been following these proceedings, but if you look at the amount of work that's going to be done, yeah, I think it's a value that's well spent. If you're talking about spending $800,000 for a problem that could cost $30 or $50 million to fix over a 20-year period, it's very important to get the information up front. So although there might be questions about the meetings and a cost of $60,000, all in all, I won't go on and on because I'm afraid it will be too much of an ego problem, but the committee did excellent work. I'm very much in favor of this, and the only comment I made to Dr. Burke is that, as I see the report, has a lot of acronyms in it, and he's promised to, when it goes up on the website, to decode that for people so they can understand the amount of work we're going to be getting from our engineers. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Alderman. And Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, I want to thank the committee as well and city staff. This is what I've been hoping we would see move forward. Yeah, certainly it's a lot of money, but this is the basis of what we're going to be able to use for the whole plan that we have put together, that we end up putting together. The one thing that I do want to remind people of, and that is that as we move forward with this plan, we're going to have some design criteria that we're going to be dealing with, and the reality is that floods, such as the types of floods that we had this past summer, we are not going to be able to manage. It's just realistic. Let's be realistic. But the floods that we get on an annual basis, those are the floods that we're going to be able to deal with. And as they look and they do their study, they're going to help us to identify that. It certainly is going to help us to have those homeowners to be able to figure out what they can do to maybe take care of some of the issues they have in their homes with those larger floods. But it certainly is not going to solve the problem of the 500-year flood, if that's what we want to call it. So we need to keep that in the back of our mind as we're moving forward. But I also have to say that I agree with Claude. If we're going to do this study, we need to do something with this study when we're done with it.
Thank you.
Alderman York, and I'll go to Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to also commend the committee. I know there's been a lot of work, and thank the citizens who've helped in participation, listening. I know that we, all of us up here, get ideas from the citizens from time to time, and we're able to relay that to various members of the committee, too. I think that's been very helpful. As I was going through this report and the engineering study and everything like that, being kind of an accounting background, I kind of came up with some numbers that made a lot of sense to me, but obviously something like this is a long-term plan for what we're going to do, and I just kind of put some numbers to it and said that if we do in fact end up spending $40 million to correct some issues that exist in the town, the engineering portion of this is only 2.1%, and I think that's a very small number when you look at the whole scope of the project. If it boils down to $30 million and we can do it $10 million cheaper, it turns to 2.8%. So I think those are some numbers that we need to pay attention to. The engineering cost at 14,000 households in Elmhurst is about $61 per household. We're all very concerned about the values of our homes. I think $61 per household is a small amount of money to spend to get a highly qualified engineering opinion, not opinion, but facts on what we need to do to fix things. And finally, some of my statistical work figured that on the stormwater side, engineering is about $130 per hour. And there's, like Picasso paintings, $8 million. That's a lifetime of work for Picasso. And so what we need to do is we need to understand that $130 per hour, all the education and experience and everything that went into there. On the sanitary side was $117 per hour. So I think we're getting a tremendous value. I think we've got the right firm pick to do this, and I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, want to commend the committee for all the hard work that's gone into creating this document, and to the task force who brought forward, I'm sure, a lot of ideas. I think that the scope of services is going to get us to a place that we really need to be in. I'm particularly pleased with the section that discusses the 10 different areas of the community that we're going to look at stormwater in. I think that we have heard a lot about particular pockets of town that got flooded very badly, and this expands that out into areas of town that we haven't talked about so much that obviously got hit with water as well. I don't think the scope of this project is the issue that I want to bring forward now. I'm particularly concerned about the comments I've heard from committee members about the costs and the rate, trying to talk about how much per household, breaking down some of these big numbers into smaller, seemingly more manageable bits. It sounds easier for us to digest them if we talk in terms of what each household might be accounted for in this overall budget. Because based on the research that I've been doing lately, I believe that this contract is at least $53,000 more expensive than it really needs to be. And that's the reason that I asked the city manager to put this document in front of you tonight. So I would ask your indulgence. If you would turn to the center of the document I've got, we don't really need to worry about what the project is. The critical thing to note is that this is a project that Christopher B. Burke Engineering has now contracted with the city of Des Plaines to provide services. The city of Des Plaines approached their contracting with this engineering firm in a bit of a different way. City of Des Plaines has broken out on this document the IDOT audited rate for the engineering firm and a fixed fee. So look at the page that says cost plus fixed fee at the top. And I bring this up because essentially what you see here is a state standard overhead rate, which is the standard fee plus, an appropriate overhead that's audited by the state, and every engineering firm in the state goes through this auditing process to establish these fees. And then Des Plaines has tacked on a 15% profit to the project, because I'm sure they recognize that it's appropriate for a business to make a profit on a project. And that total overhead and profit comes to a multiplier of 2.76. Turn the page, please. The second page of this document lists the job classifications that are going to be working on the project. It really isn't important to know what the project is. What's important to know is that engineer 4s and engineer 5s and surveyors and CAD people are paid a set rate. The set rate that Des Plaines is negotiated with Christopher Burke is considerably different than the total project budget that we see in front of us today. Could you pass these around, please? I don't want to go into a tremendously complicated discussion of mathematics, but essentially, if you take the contract in front of us and look at the total number of hours for each of the job classifications that we've been presented with, times the rate that we're being charged, Christopher Burke is going to provide stormwater services for $396,998. That's in the contract that they presented to us. If you adjust this for the rate that Des Plaines managed to negotiate with Christopher Burke, same number of hours times the rate that they've contracted with, had we been as savvy as Des Plaines, might have come up with a total cost at just under $54,000 cheaper than the contract we have in front of us. And so what I keep hearing is that we've got a fair and appropriate rate, and it's market rate, and it's this and that. But what I'm seeing is that, in fact, perhaps we should have been negotiating a little bit harder. Because what I'm concerned about is not the scope of the services. They're very appropriate. We need to do this project. We need to do it now. What I'm deeply, deeply disappointed in is that I see very little evidence that we have an understanding of how these things are priced in the marketplace. And I think that we could have realized a good chunk of savings of taxpayer money at this stage, and I only looked at the stormwater side of this. So while I support the project going forward, I'm really unhappy with the cost. And I don't know what cost is overhead and what cost is profit, because all I see is a big chunk. And I don't see any evidence that we really did understand what's fair and appropriate. And while I want to support this project, I'm a little torn about it, because I'm really unhappy with the way it's been priced. And I'd like to make a motion that we re-enter into pricing negotiations with Christopher B. Burke Engineering in order to realize these savings that we should have gotten in the first place. So I move that we re-enter into price negotiations with Christopher B. Burke Engineering.
Can I, go ahead.
I was just going to ask for a point of clarification on that motion. Is the motion specifically for Christopher Burke solely for the stormwater management side, or for both stormwater and sanitary, which they hired RJN for?
Well, that's a good point. And since I have no basis to compare RGN, I suppose that it's all part and parcel of the same thing, and that if Christopher Burke's pricing is not comparable to what we're seeing in other communities, then perhaps RJN's isn't either, and perhaps the whole pricing structure needs to be re-investigated.
Can I make a suggestion before we get it? Dr. Burke is in the audience. Would we consider suspending rules and letting him answer any questions that Alderman Gutenkopf has regarding this? Would anybody have a problem with that?
Ask for a second first. Yes.
Give a second. We're pending.
Okay, we got a motion.
I think you have to address the motion first, either withdraw it temporarily or...
Okay. Alderman, would you like to have a second, or would you like to withdraw and have? Okay. Would anybody like to second the motion then, I guess? Okay, motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a second, and so we will have discussion, and maybe part of the discussion, we could actually ask Dr. Burke to, he's willing to, can I ask for a motion to suspend rules so we could have Dr. Burke answer any questions that we have? Alderman Mulliner with a motion, and a second from Alderman Kennedy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, rules are suspended. Dr. Burke, would you like to address the council, please? Thank you.
This evening when I left the office,
That's not a mic.
I thought there might be a lot of questions. The last one that I thought I'd be answering tonight is about a median in Des Plaines. Obviously, this I've had as much time as anybody else to review it. One of the things that the alderman probably noted, and maybe in a research found out, that there's a complexity factor in these calculations that you see up here that is included. It's a zero complexity. I would suggest that the complexity factor is a much higher one for this particular or unique project. That goes into the calculations. That also is part of the spreadsheet. As we've used very competitive rates. I think that if someone had looked at the rates that on the other contracts that were on the agenda tonight from other consulting firms, you'd find that the rates are very competitive. Our multiplier is very competitive, and I'm looking at this thing. I don't know what this rate was. We negotiated some of this work with Des Plaines a while back. This is a recent compilation. I'd have to go back and research when this was done. But it does not include a complexity factor. I think, if I look correctly, the complexity factor is zero, and that goes into the calculations.
Dr. Burke, did you say this was for a median in Des Plaines?
It's a $15,000 project. It's a median in Des Plaines on Minor Street, and that's about as much as I know about the project.
Okay. I think that kind of puts things in perspective. Alderman Gutenkopf?
Thank you. I don't think that what the project is matters. I think your negotiated rates for the job classifications, a CAD is a CAD, a surveyor 3 is a surveyor 3, whether they're surveying a backyard or surveying a median, it's still a surveyor 3 rate.
No, you went through and you pointed out that there's a multiplier that's embodied in our numbers that we included, but that number also does not include the complexity factor, which goes into these calculations when you're doing this form under IDOT. This is an IDOT format. This is the format that we use for IDOT, and it does not reflect any complexity factor at all in there, which obviously this project does have. And IDOT allows for complex projects of the nature that we're talking about here.
Alderman Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few comments. First, I am proud to sign the report. I fully support the report. I was in favor of a comprehensive plan to start. I was in favor of the comprehensive in the middle part of the process, and I am still in favor of the comprehensive plan at the end. Couple points. Dr. Burke mentioned, and Alderman Gutenkopf is willing to dismiss the scope of the project. I'm not. The information that Alderman Gutenkopf has presented looks like it was requested be presented to the council at 4:29 this afternoon. We all got it as we came to the dais today, so I think for any of us for it to be suggested that any of us go through this and try to do the math as quickly as was suggested, I think is a disservice considering the hours and the time that the Public Works Committee put into this project, at least one of which, and I think two, but I'm not willing to say two for sure, but definitely one, Alderman Gutenkopf herself attended and did not mention this, to be honest. The scope of the work, I think, makes a difference. I don't know what a pedestrian refuge median is, but for $14,000, that's a little bit different than what we're contracting to do. That's a little bit different than what the process has been put together to do this whole time, of which we have all, I believe, have all been in support of from the word go. I guess in thinking about it quickly, I take my car into a mechanic to get my oil changed, and I pay one rate because the complexity of work is of a certain level. I don't expect to pay that same hourly rate as I do for the oil change when I take it in for a tune-up, an overhaul, what have you. And I'm not comfortable with being hit at kind of the last minute and suggesting with the suggestion that it should be that simple. I don't know what I don't know. I know what I know, and there are things I think I know. I'm not going to pretend to know things that I don't, that I have no experience in, but I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust that the people that are hired by us and the city staff have reviewed this, that have found the scope of work to be what we need it to be. I'm going to trust the process to pick Burke was done properly, and I'm going to trust that the negotiation was as good as it could be. Bottom line is we need to get moving, and we could what-if this thing to death. There were suggestions in committee that other towns had paid less than we have, but those suggestions never followed up with a comparison of the scope of work. Certainly there was, and tonight we're asked to, well, just forget about the scope of work and forget about the project, just look at the numbers. I'm not willing to do that. So I am in full support of the comprehensive report. I'm fully in support of the contract, and I'd ask the council to support as well. Thank you.
Alderman Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the Public Works Committee, we were very concerned with the dollars that it would cost the residents of this town. That's why we went through it, and it took a while, but we added the periodic reviews and the modifications if necessary, if things didn't need to be done, and to just keep a handle on this. But one thing that wasn't stated yet, that this needs to be started at the beginning of March. And if we miss that window, then they're going to have to wait till next year. So it's urgent that we really start this and it gets accepted this evening.
Thanks, Alderman Shea. Alderman Molitor.
Yeah, I'm also concerned about the dollar amounts, but the reality is the committee spent a significant amount of time reviewing this, and I know that the number started significantly higher than it was, and the scope of work was brought down to what was considered to be a compromise with the flexibility of being able to add, subtract, whatever was needed. So I have no problem with it. I don't fully understand what the difference between the two projects are. I'm not an engineer. I'm not here to understand what the differences in the projects are. We've asked the city manager point blank, is this an appropriate fee for what they're charging? His answer has been that it is. I think that this is the right thing to do. I think we need to move this forward, and we need to get going. Alderman Shea is correct. We have to start this by March 1, or we're in trouble. We really should have started it 2 weeks ago when the snow started to melt. Would have been a nice time to have some of these in there checking it. So, you know, we got to get moving on this, and I think that the number, yeah, while we're all concerned with it, we need to get the job done, and I think that we've heard from who I consider to be the professionals, and that's the city manager and the public works director telling us this number is correct. The committee did a great job on it. Let's get moving on it.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Hipskin. Chairman.
I agree with Alderman Healy and Alderman Shea and Alderman Mulliner. I'm uncomfortable with having numbers thrown at me when I get up to the dais and wanting to make a change on something I know the committee worked long and hard on. Many hours have gone into this. In 6 years, I haven't seen the city really come up with any one negotiation that hasn't worked out very well. Although I do remember 5 years ago, an alderman making a suggestion that they weren't comfortable with the consensus and used a fear tactic in everyone to reevaluate a real estate project. It's called Hahn Street. We lose millions of dollars every year. Hahn Street is sitting vacant right now because of information that was brought up on the dais that single night, acted upon. I voted against reevaluating the project itself. The project sits empty right now. I'm comfortable with the comprehensive plan that we have in front of us. It's been worked on very hard, and I don't want to see the same mistake made again. If we miss a timeline, it can cost not only dollars, but it's security for people, who have worked very hard. to own their homes, and this is their largest asset, and we're putting that at risk. So I support the original plan at the original dollar, and I really don't like having information thrown at me at the last second and saying, oh, now let's change this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman Hipskin. Alderman Pezza, and I'll go to Alderman Brand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be the first to admit if something's thrown at me the last second and we can physically actually save money, I'm always for that. I don't care when it's brought up. So I appreciate Alderman Gutenkopf proposing this, and I appreciate Mr. Burke being able to be here to answer the question. And it was asked, and now we got a response, and we can move forward. For me, what was more important than the dollars, which are also very important, was the contract itself. And as Alderman Kennedy said, I feel very comfortable with the actual contract because I now believe, and I want to thank Mayor DeCiani for your support and Mr. Storino for the contract that I believe does protect the city of Elmhurst and the taxpayers that are paying for this project. I appreciate the scope being added and the protection being added, and I think, yes, if Mr. Burke would have said that's correct, this is the going rate, and said we'll knock off 53,000, it would have been wonderful, but that's not what happened. And I think, as we know, we have to move forward, and as long as I know we are protected by this contract, and I won't repeat what Alderman Kennedy said, but I'm comfortable with those terms, and I think that's right now what's most important is to move forward and know we're protected at any stage of the game. So,
thank you, Alderman. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to gloss over the fact of what Alderman Gutenkopf pointed out. I respectfully disagree with Alderman Healy's comments of if car mechanic A is doing job B and then they go and do job C, that they're being charged a different rate. I don't know about in mechanics, but I am intimately familiar, since I do have an engineering background, about CAD, about engineering in all types and forms, electrical, software, as well as civil. A CAD operator is a CAD operator, no matter how complex the job that they are doing. An engineer, a field tech, is a field tech, no matter how complex the job that they are doing. So I think there is a valid point there to be made, and I wanted to reinforce that point. I have spoken with many village/cities about scope of services for storm as well as sanitary. I've talked with a handful of engineering groups as well. From my personal evaluation, and I am not a civil engineer, but my personal evaluation from speaking to these various individuals as well as cities and villages is that this does seem to be on the high side from an overall scope perspective. And believe it or not, and I didn't put it on the dais before any of you, and I wasn't even going to mention it tonight until the deeper dive discussion of cost started here. But I was cleaning out my City of Elmhurst records over the weekend, dated back, and I'm kind of embarrassed to even say this, dated back to July of 2003. And it does have my name on it by city staff, so I didn't get forwarded this from anyone. Sanitary sewer flow analysis was done by, go figure, RJN. So we were charged at that point for 3 different sanitary basins, 13, 14, and 15, which it states 4 that was a tough one, 4 flow meters apiece, which would be, if you do the math, 12 meters, $17,230. And I understand that's in 2003. Just out of curiosity, because I did in my gut think that this was high, and if you do the math, if you say 20% increase annually, compounded annually, that still only comes out to 75, where we're being charged for 125,000 My point being here is the same type of work was done in the city of Elmhurst by the same firm, albeit 8 years ago, but it went from 17,000 to 100 and I don't know the exact number, 120. I'm not saying it shouldn't increase. No doubt in my mind that it should. To me, though, something in my gut and something from talking with other villages and cities as well as engineering firms says that this line item seemed to be a little bit on the high side. Overall, it seemed to be about 10 to 15% on the high side. Now, I would love to see a savings of $80,000, $100,000, but I do agree the sanitary part of this needs to be started in March, not the storm. The sanitary needs to be started now. We do have some checks and balances, and that's why I signed the report, to evaluate this on a regular basis. I do encourage everybody to move forward with this because I think it is overall the right thing to do, even though I still think we're paying a little bit too much. But I definitely think it's the right thing to do, and we need to do it now.
Thank you. Alderman Rose, and I'm going to go to Alderman Levin, and then back to Alderman.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess I listen to this. I have a different perspective on this. It's amazing what experience will do for you personally. Even if Alderman Gutenkopf is correct, and she may be, I want to piggyback on what Alderman Shea is saying, that if we don't start this, we're another year into the making. And I think what we're saying is that we want to risk the homes, the experiences of people for another year. Let's assume she might even be correct. Are we willing? Am I willing to pay $50,000 more so that hundreds of homes, maybe thousands of homes, are not facing this in the next year? I guess I am, because it's risking it. There is no hard evidence that would say that is overpaying. I'd hate us to get a month down the line, and we've looked at it, and I think it's worthy to look at, but we've looked at it, and then it said, really, this is not overpaid. So now I got to go and tell the people on Pine Street, on Geneva, all of these places, now you got to wait another year. That's what I'm not willing to do. I was recalled by someone in the audience today. It was over 2 years ago that I was called by some folks on Pine Street. Pine Street is not in my ward. It's ably represented by really Alderman Hipskin and Alderman York, but that happens to be in my neighborhood, not in my ward. And I remember talking to those folks, and just this is before the big storm. They're one of the hot spots. In fact, they're #1 hot spot. Just the personal devastation these folks felt. I've got emails from folks about how one woman said she'd been through the Blitz in England and never felt as unsafe as she did in her home every time it rained, thinking, what's going to happen here? You could say, oh, that's hyperbole. And maybe I might have thought it was hyperbole until this weekend, when my home started to have some serious sewer problems. And I have to tell you, the sense of urgency you have with that, it's very different. I'm a pretty empathetic person, I got to tell you that. But all of a sudden what happens to you, it's a different matter. And I'm not willing to risk the experiences of the people on Pine Street, on Geneva, the people on Butterfield, in Pick Subdivision, in Bryn Haven, in York, and Seminole, and Larch. I'm not willing to risk it for them for one more year. So while I applaud Alderman Gutenkopf for trying to save that money, I would not be in favor of delaying this. In fact, I'm strongly in favor of moving it forward, especially because of these hot spots. And when you look at this, anyone who says this is all for one part of town is completely wrong. This represents the north side, the south side, the east side, the west side, the center of town. These are all the hot spots that over the past 6 years, I've gotten in the 3rd Ward numbers of calls from folks about, and folks, friends I have around town who've said, you're an alderman, can you just talk to us about this? I'm not willing to put this on hold for another year. So at the risk of saying a year down the line, someone says to me, you wasted $50,000. Well, then blame me. I wasted $50,000. I don't think I am. My best guess is I'm not wasting $50,000. I'm not willing to put these people really at the physical risk to their home and just the psychological risk of thinking their home is not a safe place. I'm not willing to do it, and so I strongly support this.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Levin.
Thank you.
Well, I got to say, I feel like I'm a little bit on the spot here because to the outsiders who might be watching this, it looks like the city council may not care about $50,000 or more, but I feel on the spot because I can't analyze this on the fly. It might be right, it might be wrong, but what's wrong is we have a procedure that could work any time up till now. It's been in many committee meetings that I've been in, and if it's truly something that comes up at the last minute, then even a few hours of heads up so that I could, spend some time. I spent some time this afternoon when I got here talking to Dr. Burke. I might have asked him about this. So I don't think the procedure was followed, and it puts everyone in a very difficult position. I'm not sure what the answer is in terms of experience levels. I'm an attorney. I charge a certain hourly rate. It doesn't matter too much what I'm doing, but that doesn't mean on a small project, if I'm helping someone out or if I'm taking on something, I could knock 25% off the hourly rate I'm charging. But this is something that would be best explored in committee. At this point, I'm going to have to trust the staff that we have, that they understand, that our city engineers understand what going hourly rates are, and that they've looked at this. I'm not sure if it's the same work or not. I think we can still look into it, and if we're really out of line, I would be the first one to go back to Dr. Burke and say, we probably got a raw deal on this. But for right now, like Alderman Rose, I was working on both my sump pumps this weekend, and I understand what that's all about. I'm going to vote against the motion and proceed with the main motion.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's not an algorithm, it's simple math. And it's simple multiplication. And it's simply that the rates we're being charged for specific services are 10 to 15% higher than negotiated rates with other towns. I don't think that we're going to have to wait an entire year. I think that's fear-mongering. We're not going to have to wait an entire year to talk about this. I attended my committee meetings on the same nights that the other committee met. It wasn't my job to be in on the negotiations. I felt the committee fell down in their job. I don't even see any evidence in committee minutes, in the final committee report, that they even asked Christopher Burke to see their IDOT adjusted rate. This is a standard negotiating number that everybody except apparently Elmhurst uses when they contract with engineers for projects of this size. So I do apologize that you got to see this information at the last minute. Frankly, I only found a very comparable recent Christopher Burke project this afternoon. So perhaps had the committee and the staff that they work with spent a little bit more time, perhaps they would have found comparable work projects listed sooner. So you're right, I did spring this on you at the last minute. I still think that my point is extremely valid. And shame on us for backing ourselves into this position of discussing it at the last minute. It's really critical because what we've done tonight, and perhaps not everyone watching is aware of this, is that on our agenda is not only this discussion of the committee report, but we will be asked to vote on the ordinance enacting the contract as soon as we finish this discussion. And since they're on the dais on the same night, it doesn't give us the opportunity to have a valid discussion as a council about what we've been presented with. So not only are we feeling like we have this last minute hurry up rush, we have to make a decision, discussion as an entire council. Now, we're following procedure. The committee did its work, they presented it to us, we're discussing it now. We will not have an opportunity to analyze any input from any other council member before we have to vote on the ordinance enacting this contract. How is that fair to the citizens of Elmhurst? How did we get in this position? How did it take so long to get to the negotiating that we can't possibly afford ourselves a little bit of discussion about how much this whole thing is going to cost? And how dare you tell me that I can't bring information forward outside of the committee structure? I'm not on that committee. It is my job to sit up here during the city council discussion of the committee report and bring up my concerns and issues. It's not going to make us wait an entire year. It's not going to flood the entire city of Elmhurst. We're not going to be underwater for 40 days and 40 nights. We're going to enter into legitimate discussion with a contractor who's provided us with information. I got this on Thursday. You've been working on it for weeks. So don't try to make it look like I'm doing something inappropriate and surprising you, because I'm doing something completely appropriate. I'm waiting until I get a committee report, I'm doing some research, and I'm presenting information. And that's all anyone can ask of an elected official. You don't have to support this, but you don't have to try and pretend that I'm doing something inappropriate, because I'm not. I'm standing up for the taxpayers of this town, the ones that got flooded and the ones that didn't. We need to be mindful of how much money we're spending on these projects, because we really are looking for a huge dollar amount down the road. And if we don't feel that the contractor we're working with now is giving us the best price, what are they going to do when the numbers get bigger?
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just address the comments as to the lack of oversight on the engineering costs. That was an integral part of the QBS process when we reviewed the capabilities of the firms. This was something that was looked at by city staff at that time, and again, furthermore, as we looked into the scope of work and the work that is going to be done. You know, there's comments made that a surveyor is a surveyor, a CAD operator is a CAD operator. In my world, that's not the case. You don't send a boy to do a man's job, and that's not what we're going to do in this case. You can't just say, I'm going to find whoever to go do this work. It's not realistic. Again, we reviewed these rates. They're fair. You cannot compare one project to another if you don't have the scope of service and the level of complexity taken into account. It's very easy to go pull a project from God knows where and compare it and say, oh, well, we're not getting a good deal. You know what? We could go and say to Dr. Burke, well, take off $50,000. And the next thing we're going to say, we'll take off another 10, another 10. In the end, we're getting a good value for the money that we're going to spend. And the product that we get will be used to make decisions that are the best that money can buy, so that what I don't want us to do is save $1 here to waste $10 or $100 later. We don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. It's really important that we do this right. I understand we're all up here for the taxpayers, but in the end, we got to do what's right, and this is what we need to do. We need to move forward with the way the proposal is now. We have sufficient safeguards in place to make sure the quality of the work is done right, that the effort is there, and the results are in the end what we need. We need to move forward. We do have a situation where time is of the essence. We need to gather information. We need to move forward. I say we go.
Thanks, Chairman. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few additional comments based on Alderman Gutenkauf's comments. First, this seems to be par for the course. The last, at least two big decisions that this council's faced, this one and the tax levy, there appears at the 11th hour a white knight that's going to shave the tax levy, or it's going to cut our bills by X amount. And in the first case, that was proved not to be the case, and I have full confidence that this 11th hour finding will also be shown not to help the city at all. Alderman Gutenkauf's logic relies on one example from one city, not cities, as Alderman Gutenkauf stated, but one city, and a $14,000 project. And based on that simple math, Alderman Gutenkauf feels good enough to say that we're being overcharged by 10 to 15%. That's one heck of a jump. That's one heck of a leap.
that I'm not prepared to make at all. Next, I've heard the word seems a lot. I've heard it up here tonight that in talks with other towns, it seems we're paying a lot. It came up in committee a couple times, one of which by Alderman Gutenkopf in our committee that she attended, when the comment was made that it seems we're paying a lot compared to what Melrose Park had recently done. I believe, I might be wrong in the town, but I want to say it was Melrose Park. It seems like we're paying a lot. And at that time, and the challenge is still issued, great. You think we're paying a lot? Then let's see a comparison of what Melrose did or other municipalities or cities did and compare it to what we're doing. And then don't tell me it seems like a lot. Tell me it is a lot. Hasn't happened yet. Happened in committee. Happened again here tonight. And I too have concerns along Alderman Kennedy's line, but I'm going to be a little more forthright with them. This implication that the committee didn't do its job and we didn't negotiate hard enough and we left 10 to 15 points on the table based on one example of one $14,000 project. To me, that logic is flawed at best. At worst, it's deceptive grandstanding. In any case, my original position stands. The report's a good one. The contract's a good one. I fully support. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will say that I do think that the committee did do their job in this case, not to sit up here and defend the committee's actions. I think some of the questions that have been asked by Alderman Gutenkopf have been asked. City staff, and I'm not pointing the finger at city staff by any means, but there was a request by Alderman Shea in regards to what other communities have done and what their costs were, what their scope of services are. The response was, if you agree or disagree, the response was that that's not an apples-to-apples comparison. I would have liked to have seen that information. There was some information that I requested that I also didn't see. I'm in support of this comprehensive plan, but I really would like to stress to, on this dais, not attack one's motives or one's character when discussing the issue. Let's stick to the issue and discuss the issue and not infer on what you may or may not think another alderman's motives are behind anything that they present here on the dais. I want to hit the last point here in regards to, Alderman Kennedy's statement of a CAD person's not a CAD person. And Alderman Kennedy made mention of in his line of work. Well, in this case, this isn't his line of work, and I have spoken to civil engineers and cities and villages, and they have told me outright a CAD person is a CAD person, and they should be charging the same rate. A field tech is a field tech, and they should be charged the same rate. I don't have anything in writing, but I will tell you that that has been the response when I have done my homework in regards to the costs and charges of this overall proposal. I do deem them to be on the high side, but I would like to move forward with this once again. But let's please keep this discussion to the issue at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Morley.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I wonder if you could have the clerk reread the motion, and I have a comment.
Clerk Spencer, could you reread the amended motion, please? I'm sorry.
This is what I heard. Alderman Gutenkopf moved to re-enter into price negotiations with Christopher Burke, RJN.
Okay. Pardon me. Most of the discussion I've heard in the last 20 minutes is not terribly relevant to that, and I haven't learned anything new. I'd like to call the question.
Thank you, Alderman. We have a second by Alderman York. Clerk Spencer, please call the roll, please.
Are we calling the roll for the call the question or yes. Calling the roll?
Yeah,
call the question.
Call the question.
Okay. Morley.
Aye.
And it was York.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Ely,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Mulliner,
Aye.
Wagner,
Aye.
Gutenkopf,
Aye.
Pezza,
Aye.
Shea,
Aye.
Leader absent, Rose,
Aye.
Graham,
No.
and Hipskin.
Aye.
12 ayes, 1 nay, 1 absent.
12 ayes, 1 nay, 1 absent. The motion to call the question passes. At this time, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll and the amendment from,
Gutenkopf.
or the motion from Alderman Gutenkopf to go into price negotiations. Thank you.
Gutenkopf,
Aye.
Graham,
No.
Hipskin,
No.
York,
No.
Levin,
No.
Healy,
No.
Morley,
No.
Kennedy,
No.
Mulliner,
No.
Wagner,
No.
Pezza,
No.
Shea,
No.
Leader absent, Rose.
No.
Okay, it looks like 1 aye, 12 nays, 1 absent.
1 aye, 12 nays, and 1 absent. The motion fails. To the underlying report, Clerk Spencer, if you could please call the roll, please.
I have another comment on the underlying report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Alderman Gutenkopf, go ahead.
Thank you. If you'll turn to the page that says, City of Elmhurst Comprehensive Flood Plan Level of Effort Stormwater Management Analysis. It's a spreadsheet at the back of the report. It's the second to the last page. At the top of the page, you'll see column titles. And there's a title, hourly rate. And the hourly rate you'll see for the principal on the project is $240. And there's an asterisk, and at the bottom of the page, it brings you to the comment, CBBEL hourly rates remained unchanged from the previous contract with the city. The hourly rates have not changed since January 2009. The last contract that we entered into with CBBEL was moved on by the City Council on September 7th. It's resolution number 46-2010. The fee sheet attached to that shows an hourly rate for the principal of $200 an hour. I submit that this is, in fact, the contract in front of us is in error and that it needs to be changed to reflect the footnote that CBBEL hourly rates remain unchanged from the previous contract and that we should be paying the principal $200 an hour. I move to change the contract to reflect this change. I'm sorry that nobody caught this error before, but I'm bringing it up now.
Point of order. If this is a Scrivener error, as Alderman Gutenkopf, I think, is alluding to, even though a motion has been made, but do we even need a motion in this case if it's a Scrivener's error?
City Attorney Storino?
I don't know that if that's what the alderman is suggesting, that it's a Scrivener's error.
I don't know what kind of an error it is. I'm just saying the rates.
I mean, a Scrivener's error can easily be modified on its face, and we've done that oftentimes and called it to the attention of board members, and we can make that change.
City Manager Borchert? I'm sorry.
I would
Sorry,
ask if we could just get the facts on this. My recollection is that the previous contract, the hourly rate for the owner, Dr. Burke, was a lower rate than the typical rate, and it was a special rate for that assignment, and his typical rates are actually $240 an hour. And I think we got a preferred rate for that interim project at $200. So I think it's actually correct.
What's correct?
Which is correct, the footnote of the rate.
$240 is the hourly rate of the principal.
Okay. So it is correct as noted, correct? City Manager Borchert?
Yeah, I'm saying that the hourly rate was an exception relative to Dr. Burke with the last contract.
Gotcha. Okay, very good.
You got a motion?
Point of order, are we having discussion on the motion?
Do we?
There's not a second.
We don't have a second yet.
I thought-
I'm not sure.
I'll second.
It can die.
Alderman Healy was second?
I don't know what
And the motion again, Alderman Gutenkopf, if you can clarify that, please.
you repeat that. Yeah.
I move to correct the spreadsheet to reflect the $200 hourly rate as per the footnote that says that the hourly rates remain unchanged from the previous contract with the city, and I have in front of me the hourly rates from the previous contract with the city. Everything else is the same except for this hourly rate. And so I think the intent here was to keep the same hourly rates as the previous contract, and therefore it should be changed to the same rates as the previous contract.
Alderman Healy, do you have a question, discussion?
Yeah, I do, thank you, Your Honor. Kudos to Alderman Gutenkopf, I did not catch that, but I'd like clarification on what exactly Alderman Gutenkopf's looking at. So if the intended charge was to not change, and we've got a contract from 2010 that says $200 an hour, I'd like I think that bears looking into.
Okay. City Manager Borcher, would you clarify for us?
Well, I think I'd, if possible, ask Dr. Burke to verify. My recollection is that the last contract, Dr. Burke offered the city a preferred rate relative to his typical firm's charges relative to his time. And the preferred charge for the last contract for his rate, which was an exception to the regular rate, was $200. The regular rate at that time was $240.
Do I need to suspend rules on this particular?
I think you've already.
We're okay?
I think we've already done that.
Okay, we're good. Dr. Burke, could you clarify?
That's exactly correct. Actually, that was one of the things that I put in the text of the contract, as Manager Borchard correctly remembers. I put in, although of all the things I was questioned at that time when that contract came up, that was one thing that was not questioned. But I did have a caveat that I had reduced it for that particular contract. And I pointed out in that contract that our normal rate was $240.
Very good. So it is in fact correct the way it's written. You normally charge $240, now it's at $200 in the contract, correct? No?
That previous one.
That's correct.
Okay.
As to cut the, I will make it that rate that I had from before if it makes the resolution of the issue, and I will change it as a Scribner's change on the contract that I will present to Mr. Storino.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Doctor. All right. So we have a motion and a second to fix the Scribner error on the hourly rate by the principal. Any other discussion? Hearing that we've got an agreement. We can do this by voice, I would think.
Sure.
All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion is passed. Now to the underlying motion of contract. Any other discussion? Or can I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please? Or to the report, I should say, to the report. Okay, Clerk Spencer, can you please call the roll?
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader. Absent. Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent. The report passes. Dr. Burke, I appreciate you being here, and I apologize for the last-minute comparison of a pedestrian refuge median. But I do appreciate your questions.
Point of
and
order. I don't think the city council needs to apologize for discussing something.
I'm
like that.
apologizing to a vendor who I felt was kind of misled. I'm speaking as the mayor, and I can do that, okay? Thank you, Alderman. On to my committee reports, reports and recommendations of elected officials, as well as appointed officials. Updates for myself, the mayor. One, I would just like to thank the city council and all of their deliberation. Chairman Kennedy, Tom Borchard, Director Hughes, all the Public Works Committee, putting the hard work into this, as well as the whole council, and agreeing to move forward with this stormwater comprehensive plan, and the hiring of Christopher Burke Engineering. I think we are embarking on a very, very important mission, and we've got a task force that's waiting for information and ready, willing, and able to dig in. And this is the first major step to put us off in that direction. So I thank the council, all the aldermen for stepping up. It's a big decision that we're making, but it's the right decision. So I thank you. On to item B, status of...
Report?
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to announce Alderman Susan Rose and myself, or I guess that's under announcements.
Yeah,
But since I already started, could I
sure
go forward? All this discussion threw me off. That Alderman Rose and myself will be having a Third Ward Town Hall meeting Tuesday, March 8th at Angelo's Restaurant on the second floor of the banquet hall. Thank you.
Time? Did you say it?
Time. 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Very good. City Manager Borchert, status of progress in Stormwater Comprehensive Plan.
Nothing to add. I think the council's actions tonight are the more primary component. I would simply state that city staff continues to accumulate data and forward that information to the consultant team of Burke and RJN. There was mention of the snow melt and the impact on the sanitary system, the storm system. A lot of documentation of that event has been captured and will be forwarded, if it's not already been forwarded, to the Burke RJN team. So that situation has not been lost. That data is collected and part of the ongoing process of staff working in tandem and in a coordinated fashion with the city's consultant. And we'll be working with the Public Works Committee going forward on a monthly report for the council as the study now will be moving full speed ahead beginning in March.
Thank you, City Manager Borchert. On to item 8, it's a resolution. Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, just a question about that. As we move forward, at what point will the task force begin working with the city and the consulting firm?
City Manager Borchert.
Well, I think the council did get a copy of Mayor DeCiani's letter to the task force. I did look at the responses to that letter. The mayor's asked for preferences of the members of the task force as to I believe five different subgroups. My understanding is the task force will be broken down into those subgroups and will, beginning then in March, be working with city staff and the consultant staff to provide that, I think, very needed position of a stakeholder group. The task force members are certainly stakeholders in the community and stakeholders on this project and its recommendations, and will provide a valuable resource for the city staff and consultant staff to make sure that all bases are being covered, all appropriate work is being evaluated, so that the foundation of a solid engineering assessment is completed, which is my understanding of the council's scope of work and the specific scope of work here. Provide that proper engineering for then recommendations going forward on project appropriateness and the specifics of those projects. Answer your question in March.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Borchert. Any other questions or discussion on appointed elected officials here? Okay. On to item number 8, which is a resolution. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the resolution, please.
A resolution to approve and authorize the execution of a professional engineering services agreement by and between Christopher B. Burke Engineering, Ltd. and RJN Group, Inc., and the City of Elmhurst.
And at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this resolution on the floor, please. Alderman Morley with a second from Alderman Kennedy. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gudenkauf. Absent. Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader, absent. Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. The resolution passes. And we'll go on to other business. Any other business? Item number 9. Other business. Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, I think we had a healthy debate, and I think that's what we're here to do, whether we agree or disagree at the end of the day. This was a huge decision. It's a lot of money. It's really important. It's a horrible thing that people have flooded. It needs to be addressed. And I would just like to ask that maybe in the future we can be a little more, I don't know what the right word is, respectful of one another's opinions, and realize we're 14 different people, and we address things differently. We have different constituents. We have different people out, reaching out to us, and we're not here to argue with one another. We're supposed to be here to discuss and debate an issue and ask questions and bring up possible solutions. I think back to when we discussed the motor fuel tax, which I was originally really, really not in favor of. And at the last minute, be it or not premeditated, spur-of-the-moment thought, whatever it was brought up to have that money put in to pay for the stormwater. And you know what? At the last minute, I'm glad it was brought up, because my light bulb went on and said, wow, I think that's a good idea, and I voted for it. So, and no one got lambasted that evening for bringing up a last-minute issue, and I don't understand why it's okay. Sometimes it's not okay other times to bring up something spur of the moment. We don't know, perhaps this information was given to somebody by somebody, perhaps somebody else asked the question. We don't know why these things come up, but the fact that they do come up, I think it can't hurt ever to ask a question, to look for an answer, to try and save money. If we can, we can. If we can't, we can't. Now we know. I applaud Alderman Gutenkopf, and I thank Mr. Burke for agreeing to changing to that $200 an hour. That was a great thing, and I thank you very much for that. And once again, I'm comfortable with this because our city attorney, I think, drafted an excellent protective agreement for the people. So I would just like to ask if we could have a little more patience with one another. It may run late, but that's our job. We're here to discuss, debate, ask questions, answer questions, whatever it takes to get the best possible solution for this town. And I think that's really all anybody truly is here to do. So maybe next time we can be a little more patient with one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Anybody else for other business? I would just like to add that we do have a process, and I think it's been brought up multiple times. And when somebody is, in my opinion, disrespectful to a vendor, as this happened tonight, that's not fair, that's not equitable, that's not fair to the council. So we did the right thing tonight, and I applaud the council for moving forward with this. So everybody's got phones, everybody's got, we get the packets on Thursdays. There's 3, 4, 5 days in between, and we can make phone calls. This time we actually had an extra day. So I think everybody deserves the respect of notice, so that we don't have to make rash decisions and understand what we're doing here. And comparing apples to oranges, a pedestrian refuge median is much different than a comprehensive stormwater plan. So I would have to disagree with you, Alderman Brown. So that's... Yeah. So, and Alderman Gutenkopf as well too. But I think we need to be respectful of our time, of the citizens' time, and of our vendors who are going to be working hard for us to solve our problems. So I think we need to send the right message there. So,
I'd like to make a motion.
Alderman Hipskin?
I'd like to make a motion to end the meeting.
To adjourn? We got to do announcements yet. Alderman Mulliner.
Just a comment. I mean, one of the things that we need to be very careful of up here is, as it was said very clearly, there's 14 of us. It's our job to debate issues. Whether we agree or disagree, we're debating issues up here. So let's be careful. Let's not cross the line and try to stifle debate. I mean, I understand there's a process. I'm wholeheartedly in support of the process, but let's make sure that we don't stifle debate. That's what we're up here for. We're up here to debate and discuss the items for the citizens of Elmhurst. Every one of us is doing what we feel is in the best interest of this town, and I know everybody up here has their heart into what they want to do with is the best interest for this town. So let's be careful we don't stifle debate.
Anybody else? Alderman Healy and Alderman Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Alderman Muller's comments. I agree with Alderman Pez's comments. But I'd also like to add that if a particular alderman is going to call into question a committee and how they did or didn't do their jobs, or on the dais pretty much say that they failed to do a certain part of their job, I think it's incumbent upon that alderman to at the very least talk to the committee chair. I can only speak for myself, and I know if there was a committee report that was out that I didn't agree with, or that I was even thinking about going on the dais to accuse a committee of not doing their work, I would call the chairman ahead of time and voice that concern. I don't know that that was done in this case. That's the reason for at least my strong reaction. I don't think my comments stifled any debate, but at the same time, I thought it was important to get some of those comments out, considering the comment was made that our committee, did not do its job. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Announcements. Alderman, our Clerk Spencer.
I've got an announcement, and it's on the lighter side, and hopefully everybody will have a big smile on their face. I'd like to give a birthday shout out to an Elmhurst resident, Agnes Eldon Maxim, as she prepares to celebrate her 99th birthday on February 28th. Among her jobs, Agnes worked for Elmhurst Memorial Hospital in the Foundation Department for 20 years, and she logged over 3,500 hours volunteering as a guild member at Elmhurst Hospital during her 51 years living here in Elmhurst. Agnes moved here in 1960 with her first husband, Bob Eldon, when he took a job as department manager under Robert Palmer. Incidentally, 40 years ago, the team of Bob Eldon and Anton Harwig hired a promising young engineer named Thomas Borchert. Happy 99th birthday, Agnes. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Agnes. It's always nice to have Clerk Spencer brighten up the room here. So. Alderman Pezza.
Just one quick good announcement. On Friday, March 11th at 6 p.m., the Elmhurst Pan-Hellenic Foundation will host their annual Spring into Fashion show. Will take place at the Diplomat West here in Elmhurst. And all proceeds benefit educational scholarships to help deserving young women pursue their dreams of higher education. For tickets, you can go to www.eventbrite.com, or you can visit the elmhurstpanhellenic.org website.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley. Alderman Rose. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.